After moving to New York City at 18 from Wichita, Kansas, whenever I'd return home to visit my parents, we would always have a very similar routine. I would arrive at the airport, they would pick me up, we would go get either lunch or dinner depending on when I landed, then we'd go back to the house, I would immediately go hang out with my mom in the primary bedroom, we'd watch our shows together and catch up, and anytime I wasn't with her, I would catch up with my dad, who was usually lounging in his chair in the family room. And so in the moments I included for September 20th in my book, Losing Linda May, a Cancer Caregiving Memoir, the routine is in full effect. Even though there's some parts of it that I didn't include in the book, we went through all the motions that we would normally do from the pre-cancer days. So despite the fact that my mom had gone through so many aggressive forms of treatment for non-Hodgkin lymphoma, she had developed a subdural hematoma while being hospitalized for an autologous stem cell transplant that required her to have 2 craniotomies, one planned, one unplanned. Then she got transferred to a rehabilitation hospital. She had finally gotten out of that hospital, but she was still doing outpatient physical therapy. So despite all of that, we had still found a way to get back to some semblance of normal, but all of our conversations still revolved around my mom, her treatment, and her recovery. After only a couple days being back home, I felt like I had already run through all the topics that I could possibly discuss with my mom, and it just felt really disconnected from who we were prior to her having cancer. This is a passage from one of the moments I included from September 23rd in my book when my mom and I are having lunch at Steak and Shake together. Mom leans forward and siphons an Oreo milkshake through a robust straw. I cannot help but feel self-conscious because I've yet to start and sustain a conversation with her since we left the house. The cancer has stripped us of all the topics we would normally discuss. We can no longer catch up on the events of my life in New York City, share gossip that has made its way through our respective social networks, or commiserate about annoying patients at work. We share the same reality. Unless we chat about how she's been processing her experiences, which I know is not actually an option, then we do not have anything about which to talk. These days got really uncomfortable for me because they were so far removed from the relationship dynamic that I had with my mom prior to her having cancer. In those days, we could talk endlessly. The conversation was always free flowing, but now I just kept hitting conversational walls. Not only that, part of who I am is always keeping a conversation going when I'm with someone. I'm always thinking ahead at what topic to talk about next to make sure that there is no lulls in the conversation. So I just felt like I couldn't even do the thing that I was really good at in this moment. It just reinforced my failure both as a son and as a caregiver. Now, having gone through aggressive forms of cancer treatment myself, I can actually put myself in my mom's shoes in this moment. And now I understand that it's not necessarily that I had an inadequacy of my communication skills. It's that when you go through a medical crisis, you can sometimes feel like you don't have a lot to contribute conversationally. So after my autologous stem cell transplant, I took a 4-month medical leave from work. And during that period of time, I just had so little going on in my life that when I would talk to other people, I really struggled to contribute in the way that I normally would like to. I had no stories to tell. I had nothing funny that was happening in my life. So I didn't really know how to engage in the way that I had prior to having cancer. In this stage of both of our cancer journeys, my mom and I were in remission. We were recovering mentally and physically from the treatments that we had gone through, and we were just going to a lot of doctor's appointments. That's really it. Other than the food we were eating and the shows we were watching on TV, and in my case, the video games I was playing, we really had nothing about which to talk. And when you compare that to other people who are living really full lives, they're traveling, they're getting promotions at work, they're dating or getting into new relationships, those are all really invigorating conversations that you want to take part in. Whereas when you feel like you're on the other side of that spectrum, you just have nothing to bring to the table. This situation is actually very similar to when you're in a long-term relationship and you're both in kind of like a lull point at that time. So it makes conversations way less dynamic and entertaining and enriching. So you start to get really self-conscious about what you're bringing to the table and whether or not your partner is fulfilled and happy. In reality, though, they're likely feeling the exact same thing. So when I go back to this time period in my book where I was putting all this pressure on myself to maintain a conversation with my mom, I now realize that she likely was feeling the exact same way because she also knew how we used to be prior to her having cancer. And now that I have been in her shoes, I realize how hard it can be when you've just gone through major medical procedures and treatments that you can't come up with anything to talk about, even though you desperately want to. If you ever find yourself in this circumstance, either as a primary caregiver or as the person who's gone through a major medical crisis, just know that you are not alone in your struggle to communicate or to hold a conversation. It is very normal. It's also just temporary because life will inevitably pick back up again and you will have plenty of things to talk about. So hang in there, and let's just hope that when it does pick back up, that you get a lot of good things to talk about instead of a lot of bad things to talk about. In the next video I'll be releasing on September 24th, I'll be diving deeper into the follow-up visits that my mom had in Omaha, Nebraska after 1 month of being released from the hospital. So hit subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. The link to my book is in the description, and I will see you all on the 24th.